Hello, I am Karen from Journeying Soul Therapy, and today I'm here with Emily from Quantum Soul Awakening and Cora from Cora Jones Soul Center Healing Hypnosis. And today we've gathered to talk a little bit about what we do and to answer some of the questions people have about hypnosis and past life regression. So let's start with hypnosis. What is hypnosis? Because I have a lot of people writing to me and they're a little bit fearful of the word. They think they've seen something on the telly in the past and they think they're going to go under. They're not going to have any control. They're going to be manipulated. It's all a bit fearful for them. So let's start with that, because it's not like that at all, is it?
No, absolutely not. So you had some memories that you were sharing with me the other day, Emily, about Dolores Cannon and the progress that she made and the differences she saw within her clients. Do you want to start with that? Because that's really interesting.
So Dolores Cannon, as most of you will probably know, with her amazing work that she did with quantum healing, she found that in the 50s and the 60s, a lot of her clients would go under and then finish the sessions and not remember anything at all from the sessions. But then as time progressed and then the collective consciousness raised, she found that in the 90s, something started to shift where people would come out of the session and still remember, almost as if they were like a dual screen. They would be aware of what was happening in the session. So their ego, their conscious mind would be aware of what was going on, but almost as if they're watching it on TV. So it's quite interesting that that's the trend that's happened. And personally, with my clients, I've found that that is exactly what happens. The clients will go under, but they're aware of what's happening. So there's nothing that I could do. Like I can't make them jump up and down like monkeys or anything like that. They know and they're in control. And I think a lot of people feel that they're fearful sometimes of going under because they think that, they won't have that control, but that's not how it is at all.
Yeah, so I found that from my own experience that I just feel like it's almost like a daydream, but you can get the emotions coming through from those experiences that have happened. Like they can be sort of upset if something traumatic happens, but pretty much all of the clients that I've had, they almost sort of, it's almost like their sort of ego self is sort of watching what's happening, and they can sort of rationalize it and think of it as an observer. I've just had a very few percentage, maybe 10% of clients that have been snowballistic, and they've actually been fully submerged in the experience. So it's like it's happening as they're seeing it. So they're reliving it, but it's very, very real for them. So they can't kind of step back and see it sort of as an observer. They are very much part of that experience, but even those clients remembered those experiences after the hypnosis was over. So it wasn't like they were completely unaware of what they were experiencing. They were still very much awake and aware.
And from my own experience too, because I must have had about 10 sessions done on me, it's only maybe the last little bit when you're in the higher self bit that's a bit kind of fuzzy, because you're kind of so in touch with that higher self that it's, that's the only bits that I perhaps don't remember, but the rest I remember completely.
I think if we take out that word hypnosis as well, it doesn't seem so scary because we all go into that brainwave state every single day. If we're washing dishes and you kind of your mind wanders slightly, you're already going into hypnosis. It's just that we've associated that word hypnosis with what we've seen on television, where these people aren't in control. But it's something so normal. We do this every single day, when we wake up, when we go to bed, and you're in that kind of fuzzy dream state. That is hypnosis. So it's just a normal kind of thing that happens every day in our brain waves. And so if we think of it that way, it's not so scary.
Yeah, because that's the alpha brainwave state, isn't it? When you're in that relaxed state, and that's when your intuition can sort of come through more strongly as well. Because like when you're doing the higher self section of the hypnosis or the past life regression, that's when you're kind of more channeling that sort of information from your higher self. So maybe that's sort of because you're channeling, it's not quite so much coming from you, it's more coming from your higher guidance.
By the time we get to that section,
slip more into the theta state at the end.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's when I find as well the clients can't hear. They're more kind of it's more fuzzy is when they go into that deep theta state. By the time we get to the higher self, they're so in that deep theta state that it can be a bit more fuzzy, but not to the point where they don't have control, not like that
Yeah,
at all.
no.
It's more like that feeling where you've had a dream and it's slipping out of your mind. You can kind of see it slipping away, you know, and you're desperate to remember, but it
Yeah.
just kind of slips away. It's more that kind of feeling rather than the loss of control feeling.
That's such a good way of putting it, Emily. I love that.
Brilliant analogy.
And what about people that think they can't be hypnotized or can't go in there? Because I thought that about myself really initially. I thought there's no way I can reach that point, but it's really quite easily once you relax your body and relax your mind, isn't it? Um, to go in, you just start getting the feelings and the senses of what's happening.
Yeah, I've only had very few people that have thought that they're not able to. And I think just the fear and the thought that they can't do it means that they just want to run away and they don't want to keep trying. I think but in actual fact, if they can manage to relax themselves enough, they do start to slip into it, and then those thoughts and sensations start to come through, and they start to piece together things. But I think it's more the fear of not being able to and not being able to relax. It's just as long as you're completely relaxed and you just go with the flow and just see what comes through. I think once you can relax, then everybody can be hypnotized. Everyone can go through this process and then use it for healing and for sort of higher guidance.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, if you set the intention before your session that you want to kind of relax and just not have any expectations and just see it as something enjoyable, that really
Yeah,
helps. And also helping yourself by making sure that your surroundings are calm and relaxed. So you don't have like a dog or a cat kind of, you know, annoying you, and that's going to kind of be at the back of your mind at the same time. Or if you're
yeah,
worried that your child might come in, if you set that time aside and you know, okay, I've got 3.5, 4 hours of uninterrupted time where I can really relax. And I think that's one of the good things about doing online as well with SCHH. The person, the client's actually in their own environment
yeah.
where they feel relaxed and feel comfortable, so they can really go into that deep relaxation, which will help them to go under much easier than where they would be somewhere where they don't know anyone or don't know the environment and may feel on the edge.
Yeah, because I've had some people that worry about being hypnotized online. They don't feel it's as safe as doing it in person. But just that feeling of security that you get by being in your own personal space is really like a really great benefit to helping you to relax properly, I think.
Absolutely.
And
You've got
it's
your own bed, your own
yeah.
pillows, you can get comfy. Which brings us on to Emily. If you could tell us a bit about the difference between SCHH, which we all practice, but you also practice QHHT. Could you speak to the differences a little bit?
Yeah, so Soul Center Healing Hypnosis was created by Laura Whitworth, a wonderful, wonderful practitioner who had many years' experience in QHHT and clinical hypnotherapy. Throughout the years, she started to find that there were clients that were unable to go into past lives because they had, you know, energetic traumas or entities or something that was blocking them. And so she developed a technique where her clients would come to her and she would help release that. So these energies or these entities would be released, and then that way the client could then pass into the past life and connect with their higher self. Whereas QHHT, again, an amazing modality. Doesn't really focus on that part. It's just the past life regression and the higher self technique. So I think in the past, perhaps QHHT was something that was, you know, very beneficial, and it still is very beneficial to many people. But where we've started to see, you know, the collective consciousness raising, there's lots of these energies and entities and things like that that are ready to be released and transmuted back into the light. And so that's where, you know, this new technique is really helping to do that and to elevate the collective consciousness. So I think that's where I see the differences. With SCHH as well, we also offer an aura and chakra rebuild as part of the session. So again, that really helps to kind of check through all of the client's chakras to see they're all on point and they're all aligned, working beautifully. So we do that as part of the session, and that's not something that we do as QHHT. So I think it depends on the client. Both are wonderful modalities. Some people prefer to do face to face, which is great, and we can do QHHT. Some people, as we were saying, prefer to be in their own home environment, and so online works for them. And maybe they have a feeling that they have some energies that are ready to be released, and so SCHH would be the modality for them.
I find that with the chakra rebuilds and the aura reseal, that seems to be something that most clients who haven't been through this process before actually need. So it seems to be that the higher self will guide them, that they need to balance those chakras out and just do a really good cleanse and to align them all, and then to reseal the aura, because I think everyone can have been through some sort of trauma or upset or something like that that can affect or fracture the aura, and then just any emotional things can also affect your chakras as well. So I think it's quite common. I find that's one of the things that I do with pretty much every new client.
It's one of my favorite bits. I love that bit at the end. You come out feeling woohoo.
Have you both found any trends as well? I've found that a lot of the people that come to see me who are, light workers or star seeds, they always seem to have a lot of issues with the throat chakra, where they're quite quiet generally in their day-to-day lives, and they don't have that, natural ability sometimes to speak their truth. They're quite used to holding it all in, and so they have issues around the throat chakra. Have you found
that's me 100%? That's me. That's why I've got this lapis lazuli on, because I was recommended to wear that to help open the throat up.
I've definitely found that. I mean, strange things can impact that. Lots of different things can impact the throat chakra, things that you wouldn't think, sort of like trauma or sort of like a fearful experience, or things that you'd expect would be impacting the heart chakra more, and they can, but it can really cause that inability to speak their truth and speak up. It's really common. Interesting point, that one.
I love when you kind of start to see trends coming up. It's really interesting to kind of analyze it. As someone who's a bit of a geeky nerd, I like to see that kind of trends and patterns in sessions.
You'll be graphing it.
Probably.
We'll come to you for the graphs.
Should we talk a little bit about what we do before we go in to our past life? We obviously relax the body and we relax the mind, but we also use a lovely white light protection to relax the body and also protect you when you're going under. But let's talk about what else that we do, because we do a little body scan, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, before we actually start the session, I think all practitioners will set their own white light protection, and they'll call in their own guides and the angels that they were wanting to be working with that day, just make sure all the energy in the area where you're working is clear, and also sort of send that to the client as well, and make that connection, just to make sure that the space you're working in is like positive and aligned with source, and that you've got that nice clear energy field before you start. And then do you want to carry on with the next bit? What were you saying?
Yeah, well, the body scan. So there's several places we can pick up energy through the sessions, and there's the body scan at the beginning. There's obviously during the past life itself, and then at the end the higher self bit, just to make sure that you've got rid of all those kind of energy blocks and what have you. But sometimes these blocks can prevent people from really relaxing fully.
I find like, carry on, Emily.
I was just going to say, it's kind of like an MOT for the soul, isn't it? When we do these sessions, we really take in the time to check if there's any blocks or things that need to be released, so the client leaves the session feeling amazing, like they're just like so elevated, where we've cleaned them up and sealed their aura nicely, they've spoken to their higher self or connected with their higher self, and so it's like just such an amazing thing to do for yourself, for self-love.
I was just going to say that something that I've noticed with repeat clients, so some people I've seen like 2 or 3 times, and it always seems to be like with the first session, that's where you'll encounter like the the traumatic past lives where that's impacted them really, really seriously. And so they sort of clear out all of that emotion and clear that all up. And then you'll find that sort of as they have more sessions, that they won't necessarily be seeing things like such severe situations, things that have caused them so much harm, because they've kind of healed the main sort of things that they've been carrying inside. So they'll start to see more high vibrational lives, maybe, or sort of just different messages which are more positive and like spurring you on in your life to sort of like to elevate your frequency, and just like general guidance more. That's what I'm finding.
I have found with the blockages people have, well, for me particularly, there's layers and layers and layers. So I've had a session and I think it's gone. I had this thing at the back of my neck and it was kind of gone. But then I did another session and it hadn't gone completely, and I had to keep working on that. It was like there was just layers and layers and layers of this thing.
Yeah.
So sometimes you do need more than one session to completely kind of remove those.
One of the things as well that I really like about SCHH is I think that the induction part where you do put the client under is a bit longer than with some of the other modalities. And so even the people that are quite tense or, worried about going under have the time to really relax and go deep, because we do take the time at the beginning to make sure that we do that. So I do really like that about SCHH. I think that for people who are quite worried about it, it's a great modality, because we do take so much time at the beginning to really make sure that they are comfortable and deep and really kind of under before we start going into the past life part.
What I found as well, it really reminded me of when I do yoga, like when you get to that relaxation part at the end, the same sort of things she's used there, with sort of relaxing the various different parts of the body and working your way through those different parts of the body. So it's really reminiscent of that sort of relaxation that you do at the end of yoga, which to start off with, just to get the body really relaxed. And it's really lovely. It's really nice.
It is nice, isn't it? So once you're completely relaxed and we've removed all those blockages, we'll then take you into a past life. And that's something that you're guided to see that particular day by your higher self, isn't it? But what is a past life? Exactly.
I mean, what I find is it's so exciting at that part, because you don't know where you're going to go. You don't know where the client's going to go. And just going with an open mind into your session really helps, because you could go into a past life, you could go into a parallel life, you could go into kind of a future life. Who knows where your higher self will take you? And what I find so beautiful is that we sometimes are going through the session, we're going through the life, and then even at that point we still don't know why we're being shown that. And it's only when you come to the higher self part and you ask, why were we shown that today, and they'll explain, and it all makes sense. I mean, for each of the clients, it's just like an aha moment of that, oh right, that makes so much sense to me and my life. And so it's so beautiful to see that part, and so exciting for us as practitioners, because we learn so much. I'm sure you can both agree that you've learned so much about historical things that perhaps you didn't have any idea about before.
It's really interesting to verify that. I find that you get these sort of historical details and things that you don't even know about in your everyday life. You've never heard of it before. Like, sorry, excuse me. For example, like the way that the Egyptians buried the dead, or the way that they used to embalm people, or the construction of sort of houses, how they were built and what they looked like. And then you'll go and you'll check it online. You'll go, oh my goodness, look, yeah, there's one. That's what it's true. Yeah, so it's amazing. It is amazing. It's a good verification as well that what you're seeing is actually really your past life, and it's not just something that you're making up or imagining.
Well, I think that's one of the things the clients always think, don't they? That they're making it up. And then when you can verify it, or I know is when I've done sessions where I've been the client, I've then gone after the session, listened to my session and heard bits, and then gone to research it, and then found that it was actually true. And then you think, I can't have been making it up, so this is real. So it's really good for yourself as well to validate.
That's the really exciting bit, isn't it? When people start researching what you've uncovered in your session, then they start emailing and going, yeah, I've researched this, and wow, that's really happened.
Yeah, everyone
Really
gets really
cool.
excited about that, don't they? You can't really do that research because you can get like elemental lives and like this
Yeah.
sort of like dragons, fairies, sort of all different types of elemental, or like you can just be pure energy, or you can be a light being. So there's lots of other things that you obviously there's no way you can verify that, but there are some things written. So like if you perhaps get like a galactic type of lifetime, you'll see yourself like I remember a session that you had, Kaz, where you had like a blue crystal in your forehead.
Yes, that was my
Yeah.
Andromedan life.
Yeah. And so obviously
Yes.
you didn't know that about the Andromedan race, but then if you research online, some people that have maybe done their own sessions and they've written up everything that they've ever found out about the Andromedan race, and you'll find that they have got this blue crystal here, which
Amazing.
so when you go and research that, then you can verify it to some
You sent me a
degree.
picture, didn't you? Going, wow, look, here you are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
I
fascinating.
love that.
I do
That's
too.
again the same trend thing that really excites me. Like I've recently had three different people. Each of these people, none of them knew each other, and they all spoke about the same thing about going to a place where there's crystals, and they kind of like can walk through the crystals and then absorb the information about this place. So there's a crystal, let's say about Earth, and they go to this place. It's like an Akashic Records kind of hall of
Sounds a bit
knowledge,
like
let's say.
Superman, doesn't it?
I
Ah,
know.
amazing.
And they've all said the same thing, that they're drawn to this crystal about Earth. They go towards it and they want to absorb the information for their collective, for their
Wow.
consciousness. And they've all said the same thing, and none of them knew each other. So I find
Wow,
that
that's
absolutely
amazing.
fascinating. Yeah.
Ah, that's amazing. Yeah, well, a lot of these films are based on, I think, they're based on actual, maybe channeled stuff, because I know that Star
Mm,
Trek was based on channeled information, wasn't it? So
mm.
I think perhaps like these things like Superman and all these other things, they must have somebody somewhere that's channeling stuff, or maybe just excuse me, I keep coughing. Maybe just the authors of these things. Perhaps these ideas are kind of given them to
Downloaded
them
to them.
by their
Yeah.
higher self. Yeah, it's kind of like yeah, they've just got maybe that connection with their higher self that's giving them these ideas, so that it's getting out into the collective and teaching people sort of inadvertently.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I do a lot of painting and I feel like I'm channeling when I'm doing that. I
Oh,
get the sense that it's not completely me because you kind of go somewhere else when you're doing it. I
yeah,
guess
well,
it's like that
just
for a lot
your
of creative sort
painting.
of things.
Yeah, definitely. Creativity is really, really good for you, isn't it? It's really important.
Yeah. So should we talk about healing in the sessions? Because there's lots of kind of different things that can happen in there and lots of ways you can heal, lots of different aspects of healing. Because for me, a lot of the when you get to the blockages and etc., there's definitely trapped traumas, trapped fears that can be unblocked and kind of moved through the body. If you had any experiences of healing in your sessions?
I think the body's such a wonderful messenger, isn't it? It will tell you a lot of the time, just very literally, what the problem is through the ailment and through the problem in the body. So I love when I see a client and, they've told me that they have an issue. I research it just to make sure that I kind of get an understanding of what to expect. And then when the higher self tells me it's because of X, Y, and Z, it's like, so obvious, it's
Mm,
always so literal, but it's beautiful that we can heal it, if it is appropriate and the higher self says that it is in the best interest of the client. I've seen some amazing things where the client has had that issue completely go away. I mean, I've not had to deal with any yet that are huge issues, but they are things that really impact the person and impact their day-to-day life. And then when they come back to me and say, this has helped me immensely, it's just such a wonderful feeling. And it's them, they have the power to do this. We're just the facilitators, who are helping them tap into that knowledge and to that thing inside them that can heal themselves from within. So it's beautiful, absolutely amazing. I absolutely love doing that.
yeah.
Yeah, I found the connection between, say, like you might have a client that's got allergies and then they've got like emotional blocks or sort of patterns that they're sort of cycling in their life, or things that they don't feel able to do. So it's sort of also with the emotional side, yeah, you'll see symptoms. It could be like allergies, or it might be like you were saying, a physical ailment. Yeah, so you can look at that before the session. You can draw a bit of a picture up, and like you can do some really good guesswork as to what could be the issues that their higher self might bring forward for them to heal in the session, which generally speaking it always is. Pretty much you can kind of get quite a good picture of what's going to come up and what you might be dealing with. So that's good for us as practitioners. Obviously we have like our one-to-one session with the client before, where we chat through the paperwork. So we have a form that you will fill out that will highlight all these areas for us so that we can see that, and then we can sort of chat through the background history and
start investigating.
Yeah, so investigating. Like the metaphysical anatomy book's really useful because it's got every sort of physical ailment, and it can show you where that could have come from, sort of the emotional things or the historical sort of experiences that an individual might have had in this life or perhaps in another. So really interesting.
And clearing karma, I guess, is a big part of that, isn't it?
I don't know if both of you have had this, but quite recently I've been hearing a lot from the higher self, from different clients, saying that as we kind of go through ascension, past lives are not so important as they used to be. You know, that it is important to clear karma, but it's more important for us to focus on ascension now and kind of raising our vibration in this lifetime, because this seems to be the most important life because of ascension. You know, I don't know if either of you have heard that come through in sessions recently.
I have been told, by the higher self that karma won't be carried forward. What were you going to say? Sorry, Kaz? Carry on.
No, I'm just quite happy. Listening.
Sorry, I thought I jumped in. You were just about to say something. How about you? What's your experiences with karma?
I've just had lots of lovely sessions with people kind of saying goodbye to loved ones, or there's been bad relationships in this life, and then they've gone into their past life and they've met up with the person who's also been there with them, and they've sort of worked out some karma there. They've kind of hugged, they've said goodbye, that kind of thing, which has really helped them emotionally, releasing that in this life. That's been really nice to see.
Yeah, I've come across quite a few patterns, like sort of, for example, like a relationship with like one soul where you're constant. They've been constantly through lifetime after lifetime. It's almost taken it in turns to leave one another and break the other one's heart, and it just seems to be repeat. So until that lesson's learned and they maybe just handle it a different way, or that doesn't happen anymore. But it's really nice to know now that we're getting to the stage where we're not going to need to learn through karma anymore, because it's quite a just sort of, obviously when you behave badly and you do something to someone else, you then need to come back and experience that yourself. So you'll sort of maybe do something to someone that's hurt them, either inadvertently or like maybe just because your ego was too big, or you're too sort of caught up in your own sense of self-importance, and so you have to come back then and experience that again. So it's quite reassuring that we're getting to a stage where that's not going to be necessary, because it doesn't make life very nice, does it?
No.
It's like over and over again, and people are maybe going to be learning these lessons more quickly now, and especially with like spirituality, sort of people are talking about these things, so we're getting the point more, aren't we, really, I think.
And a really nice thing about the sessions is just finding out more about who you are, isn't it? It really opens you up to what you're made of. Yes. And we've talked about the different lives that you can typically have. Or should we talk a bit more about that? We've talked about, kind of the galactic side and I've had fairies. Anyone else had any sort of cool, interesting?
I think the only one that we haven't mentioned maybe is like inanimate objects. Like it's possible I've heard of other people that have had sessions where there've been leaves or trees or rocks. My experience of that has been just like pure energy, sort of like connecting. And also someone was a drop of water, which was quite interesting. They were actually traveling around the water cycle and going through polluted areas, and the freedom of being in the sea, and then feeling of lightness as they were lifted up. But there must have sort of a reason for that.
I had a lovely one with Emily, didn't I, where I was just this little ball of light. I absolutely loved that. I was just kind of bouncing around, popping in people, lighting them up a bit, and then popping out, going somewhere else.
Yeah,
that was fab.
It was really nice. She was just going into different beings and helping them just to raise their vibration. It was so lovely. It was really nice.
And that was it. That was my job.
That sounds like a lovely job.
I've found as well, though, that there's less and less people going into actual past lives, like Earth past lives. I don't know if what you have had the same thing, ladies, but it seems more and more people are kind of tuning into these other lifetimes, these quantum lifetimes, galactic lifetimes, and less about the kind of what did Dolores Cannon used to call it, the potato lifetimes, or where you're just kind of like digging potatoes. That's it, where it's just like your everyday 3D life. It's interesting to see that as we kind of raise our vibration again, people are kind of tuning into the other aspects of their multi-dimensional selves rather than just this kind of earth side.
I have a good mix, I think.
Yeah.
Kind of half and half. Yeah.
I tend to find that people have earth lives when they very first come for sessions. Like I was saying, like those big issues come up, and that can be bound up within the earth lifetimes. But once they've over that, then they can have more multi-dimensional lifetimes. But I think like obviously, like, because Earth's a school, they say, don't they? Earth's a school. It's like a really good place for learning. That's why a lot of souls choose to come here, because you can learn so much through, because you're learning through the emotions. It's a very emotional planet, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I mean, comparable sort of learning experiences possible elsewhere in different planets or different beings, etc. But I think Earth's a really valuable place to come and to learn things.
Yeah, it's like a fast tracking, isn't it?
Yeah,
fast tracking learning.
Seems to be, and I love the Earth lifetimes. Seeing the Earth lifetimes, sort of when clients have Earth lifetimes, you can. I think they seem just as valuable and valid as anything which is maybe higher dimensional or galactic.
Yeah, and the beauty is that each person will see what they need to see, which is what we were saying before. The higher self will choose the best, most appropriate lifetime and place for the client to go for the most healing. So that's the beauty of it. We don't know where we'll go or what we'll see, but we have that trust and that knowledge and that knowing that it will be the best for our best intentions.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always for the client's highest good.
I had one client who had webbed feet in this life. She has webbed feet. And she'd always wondered where this had come from, why this was happening. She hadn't put it in any of her higher self questions, really. She just put kind of bog standard things. But it came up when we went in that she had this mermaid life.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
And she was just like, wow, that's it. That's where the feet come from. Amazing life as a mermaid. Yeah.
I've had one of those, and everything under the sea was like almost fluorescent. It was like luminous neon bright. It was beautiful. Amazing.
I had myself one like that where I was from Lemuria. It was a Lemurian lifetime, and I was some kind of like water being, and I didn't even know this about the Lemurians beforehand. And then when I obviously finished the session and then researched it, I found that there were these like shape-shifting beings in Lemuria that did kind of like go from land and sea. So
So
I
what
was
was your
just like, this
form?
is incredible.
What was your form?
I don't even know how to explain it. It was very kind of elongated. It was half fish-like, but still had a like human aspect to it. And it was like a bluish color, but I can't
Sounds like a
relate it to
mermaid.
something.
Sounds
Yeah,
like
but I
what a
didn't have
mermaid
the
would be.
fin though. I didn't have the
Didn't have the
fins.
tail.
No, not the tail. But
Right, okay.
yeah, so
Interesting.
and in that lifetime, I saw kind of the destruction of my world.
I
And
was there.
oh, you were there? Yeah, I remember you. And then the higher self aspect then told me afterwards that the reason that I saw that life was because I wanted to know, just to have that knowledge that it wouldn't happen again, that this time round in this lifetime, I wouldn't see that happen, the destruction again. I'd see, the good win over the bad. And so that was so nice and reassuring to know that as rubbish as sometimes things may feel on earth, that that's not going to happen again.
Yeah, absolutely. And the intention, the message that comes through is always mind-blowing, isn't it? It's always something you really wanted to know, but yeah, it's always there in the back of your head. But I'm getting more and more positive messages like that too, Emily.
Good.
That this isn't the end, obviously.
Just the beginning.
But it's nice to have it confirmed, 100%.
Yeah. What's next on our list then? What other
Well,
things
I
do you
want to
feel?
talk about how we close the session after you've done your lives and you've got the messages you need. we obviously go into the light where possible, because I've had lives like that little ball of energy where I was the light kind of thing. Do you know what I mean?
Was that an infinite lifetime then? Did that have a
Yes,
beginning and an
yeah,
end?
didn't have an
No,
end.
no, it just went on and on
It just went
infinitely.
on and on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and my favorite bit at the end, obviously, and I know we've touched on this, is the whole, well, we go through the blockages again, don't we, and clear up all sorts of things there. And then we do the chakra and the aura rebuilds, which I just think is fab. I love that bit.
Yeah, so like you were saying, when the life ends, you then instruct the client to go towards source, and once they sort of reach source, they're going towards that bright light of source. They'll be greeted maybe by like family members from that lifetime they've just had, or people that they're familiar with, people that have been in their soul group. Because you have these kind of groups where you're sort of learning together, and at that point, once you're up with source in that higher dimensional state, then you can look back down at the lifetime, and you're going to have a little bit of insight into what was the reason for you sort of going to that lifetime, and who you might be incarnated in today that was within that lifetime with you, that type of thing. It's not quite like the same perspective that the higher self will have on why they've shown you that, but you get a lot of insight just as you're coming out of that lifetime at that point, before you move on to then your higher self questions and that even higher connection.
Yeah, totally skipped over the higher self questions, didn't I?
Oh yeah, and that as well. Yeah, I've got that to talk about too.
Well, let's talk about that, because that's just such a really interesting bit too, isn't it? When you can connect with your higher self and ask the questions that you've already kind of pre-planned and given to us to ask on your behalf.
Yeah,
It's
I think
just some really cool stuff.
a lot of people always ask me what kind of questions they should ask. And I try to kind of say to them, set the intention that you'll be guided to ask the questions that are the most appropriate for you, and give yourself time to think about them. Like I
Yeah.
like to kind of have the client have a few weeks to think about it. So then they might be going about their day and then something pops into their mind. But the kind of questions people typically ask are, what's my purpose? Why am I here? What should I be doing? Some people have questions about work or love or relationships, all sorts of
Yeah.
things. And then there's others that are more interested in more metaphysical subjects, and they want to know about what's going on now and what they can expect as a collective on earth in the next few years. And so there's nothing off limits. You can ask whatever you want to. And personally, that's one of my favorite bits. Like, I'm always so in awe of the higher self. It just feels like such a privilege as a practitioner to kind of tap in and talk to this amazing source of knowledge. It's just beautiful. I really love that part. That's one of my favorite bits.
Yeah, it is amazing. I agree with you. Yeah, you always sort of think, are they going to be able to sort of trust themselves enough to get that connection? But pretty much everyone does, and the guidance that comes through is so obvious that it's coming from a really wise part of yourself, really wise, and the guidance they get is just beautiful, really lovely.
So your higher self really is it's that little voice that's always there, isn't it? It's always there and it's always talking to you, but you just don't listen to it.
And I think it's got different levels as well, because I think like you've got various different levels of the higher self. So when you're within the theta brainwave state, you can like then get a connection with like the very sort of higher levels of your higher self, rather than being sort of so limited. I think you can get that guidance coming through. I often get like messages come through for me when I'm just waking up, like in a really powerful sort of bit of guidance will come through for me just as I'm waking up, and I kind of have to scribble it down quick so that I don't forget any of the details. But when you're in that theta brainwave state, that's when you can get that really powerful sort of all-knowing type of advice coming through, which is so useful.
And do you both find as well that the voice tends to be slightly different, but there's a certain kind of like authoritative tone to the higher self, where, and sometimes they're quite short and sharp with their answers, and they're like, oh, we've told her this before, or like
Yeah.
we tried to tell her the same thing every day, but she doesn't listen.
It is.
I find
so
like
funny.
during that something I forgot to mention, during that client sort of pre-chat part of the session, that's when like you can have maybe 3 or 4 questions, only on the list, and like as you're chatting, like more things will come up that they can then add on to that list. So you sort of expand the list and you get more detail. And obviously
100%.
like the question's just like a starting point, because as the higher self gives you information, then that will lead to maybe more questions, so you can like go a bit deeper with that, and to get sort of just add extra bits and pieces in so that you get the best advice possible.
As a practitioner, that's what I try to do, try to get the most for the client as possible. So I'll be just really paying attention to what the higher self is saying and just getting as much information or healing or whatever the client needs as possible. So as you said, Cora, you know, the questions are a starting point, but we'll just jump off from that and just delve as deep as we can to get as much as we can for our clients.
And it's a really good part of the session to do some healing work, isn't it? I found that really, really useful to just go over again and make sure that we've got rid of everything. And if we haven't, I just found that a really powerful part of the session, to make sure that everything's gone. And if there's any more work that needs doing.
Yeah, because like you're saying, like you can say like, is everything done now? And then when you come to the higher self and you're checking again, they'll be like, oh, actually there is something else. So like you're saying with the layers and things coming off in layers, yes, they can sort of see some more like additional assistance that can be given, and they'll give you guidance as to how the best way to do that is.
Something that people often ask is, you know, how can I continue this communication with the higher self? And so I like that a lot of the time the higher self gives practical advice on what you can do. So it could be something like, I don't know, one client who's really into drawing, and the higher self says, oh, you should draw more regularly. And that's a way that we can communicate and connect with you. So it's very individualized, the guidance, but there's always some practical elements that the client can do to connect. And as you said, Karen, you know, they're always connected. We're always connected with our higher self. It's just that sometimes we're shut off from it because we're so busy on our, like, you know, earth kind of school, that we forget about that kind of thing and push it to the side. But they're always with us.
Or quite often they're telling you to do something that you don't really want to do, so you just ignore it.
It's kind of for your learning and your growth, isn't it? They're just guiding you to those situations and places and people where you're going to learn those lessons that you've chosen for yourself in this lifetime. So you're going through that process of sort of the things that you agreed to pre-birth, and you're like, as you sat there with your wise teams making your life plan, and just so it's good to get that feedback and just to see how you're doing on your life path, and like if there's anything further you could be doing to sort of be doing a better job with your soul grace.
It's really powerful. Sorry, Emily.
No, go for it.
It's just really powerful. And then I think about, maybe it takes about a week for me anyway to kind of process it all and for it all to sink in. And I think a lot of work carries on kind of in your sleep, doesn't it? Maybe a few days after.
Definitely the healing can. I think like you were saying, like re-listening to the session then, because we send the client the video, so then that's really embeds that advice in. And I found that with me, like I've made myself little sort of extracts of the important message, and I've listened to it over and over again. I've had to listen to it like maybe 5 or 6 times, and it's really embedded that, and
that's
then
a good
I
idea.
Really feel that penny dropping. It's just kind of, yes, I get that now. I know what it is that I'm supposed to be doing, or I'm supposed to have learned from that, and it's like, yes, I can accept that. That's integrated now. I can really feel that's worked.
And it's always so beautiful that the higher self is always generally so proud of what we're doing. And we may think, oh, we're not doing this, we're not doing that, but I've yet to hear a higher self say to, you know, the person, you're doing a great job, you know, you're really where you should be, and we're here for you, and we're proud of you. And it's so nice and reassuring to get that message across. I've not heard anyone say other than that, you know, so it's wonderful.
Is there anything we've missed, ladies?
I don't think so. No, I think we've done a good job.
Is there anything else you want to say before we leave?
Anything else about SCHH that people should know that we haven't covered? I think we're kind of done as far as, I think we've covered the main points. I don't think we want to go on too long, do we?
No. Well, that was a good chat. Thank you for joining me. And if anyone wants to get in touch with Cora, Emily, or myself, you can do that.
recommend these two beautiful
underneath the
ladies.
video.
I've had sessions with both of you, and you're both really good practitioners. Say that.
Yeah, same. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Let's wave
you.
goodbye.
Bye.
Oh, thank you for doing that. Thank you.